good for you from Selena Gomez of Magic. 25 minutes from now, it'll be 9 o'clock. Mike Barrett is with us for a chat about insurance and good policies. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. How are you?
How'd your little pilot do for Halloween?
He did great. He did great. Yeah. We went to Main Street and braved the rains and did watched the parade. He never wants to be in it. He wants to watch it. So we watched the parade in St. Jay, and then we did the rounds and got out of there because it was awfully wet.
Don and Lorelei went down there and they had a golf umbrella, but they said they had a really good time.
Yeah, it's great. Rain, shine, I kept telling people, look, it's not snowing. That's the good thing, because I remember Halloween as a child. I grew up on Costa Avenue in St. Johnsbury, hiking up to Sunset Drive, then hiking up Carroll Boulevard. And if you're in downtown St. Johnsbury, you're kind of looking across at that neighborhood. I remember I was a young kid dressed as a ghost and slipped in the snow and went into a culvert. So it wasn't snowing. That's a good thing.
Dawn said she loved you and your wife's costumes as insurance agents. She said you had it right on.
We had it right on. Scariest costumes of the night. We won the award.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so insurance good policies. We just wrapped up a spell here of people without power for a while.
Yeah.
I can remember in some of our chats here, maybe some of our listeners too that join us, remember that there are things we don't think about when it comes to insurance that is coverage. One of those, lost groceries.
Yeah, it's called a refrigerated food loss, which your insurance policy will have to some level or degree. We talked last week about choosing your coverage. This kind of falls in line of that. Where refrigerated food loss, some companies max out with a payment to $500. Some companies will have an endorsement that gives you up to $1,000. Some companies will say, look, there's no deductible that applies to the refrigerated food loss, which is great. That's first dollar payment, which is wonderful. Some companies say it's a $100 deductible, and I think that could be to avoid nuisance claims. So it does vary from company to company. And if you had a refrigerated food loss as a result of being without power for such a long time, thankfully it wasn't 90-degree summer.
Right.
So the probability of losing everything is probably slim, but you may have lost some stuff. If you did, you're going to get some level of coverage. Now, the thing to do is to ask. So call your insurance agent or insurance company and say, look, my refrigerator or freezer died or was without power for how many days? Do I have this coverage? If so, what is it? And then from there, you work on a list and tally up what you lost.
Well, you would call and ask them, too, if you have it before it happens, because you're always saying the worst time to find out is when a loss happens.
When a loss occurs, yeah.
Now, too, there was a lot of posts out there of folks that had trees come down. Dawn was showing me some on some of her Facebook friends' posts where a big tree limb came down on somebody's mobile home and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't plan on that.
No, we don't.
We fear it. We dread it.
Mm-hmm.
But we need coverage.
Right. So I'm going to finish one more thought on the refrigerated food, and then I'm going to hit that one because I love that discussion. So refrigerated food loss, usually the first question people ask when inquiring on a claim was, how will this impact my rate? It shouldn't really impact your rate because it's going to be a very small claim, all things considered, less than $1,000 in all cases. So think about that before trying to cover the cost yourself. Weigh the balance and options. Now, the tree. Oh, my goodness. I was on the road Friday, and I had to bail out of my appointments because I was on River Road in Victory. And, I'm thinking I'm about 0.3 of a mile from my appointment. Very excited. I'm like, I'm on time. This is great. I figured there'd be trees down. I'm doing really well. Boom, tree down right in the road. Cross the power line. I'm not chancing it.
No way.
No way. Sat there for a minute, thought about it for a while, called the office to tell them I can't come. So anyway, long story short, on my road travels, I saw more than that one tree down. I saw many more. I saw some on power lines. I saw one in a house. Good sized tree on a house. So that's something that you need to think about, how's it going to cover? And when I saw the one with the tree on the house, I pulled over, started talking to the people. And they're like, we're waiting for our neighbor. It's their neighbor's tree. It's their fault. Not necessarily. Because if the neighbor did not know that, if that tree was not sickly, and it was not obvious that tree should have been tended to in a reasonable time before something like this would happen, it's not your neighbor's liability, even though it is their tree on your house. It is your house that has a tree on it. So it's going to fall under your insurance. So you need to file the claim to get that tree removed. Many companies are going to give you coverage to remove that tree, around $500 or so, to remove that tree, plus, of course, fix the damage that occurred to your house. If it's then found that it was due to the negligence of your neighbor, maybe the company will go after your neighbor, but I wouldn't want to necessarily wait if I have a tree on my house to see if my neighbor is going to call their insurance company. I mean, and I'm not saying that facetiously, but, be your own advocate, get on top of it, make it a safe situation.
Being I've only ever been on this side of the insurance industry, You've been on both. Yeah, it's a common perception in my mind that if my neighbor's tree falls, it's their responsibility.
Right. That's the thought. That's
Right.
the thought. So, and for trees to be covered by your insurance policy, tree must be either on covered property or blocking access to your home, like your driveway.
Right.
All right. And if that's covered, you can file a claim and probably get some level of coverage to help cut that tree up. So that's one thing to look at, too. You talked about branches falling on a mobile home. Some mobile home policies don't have anything more than basic form coverage. It says we cover fire, lightning, windstorm, or hail, blah, 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 blah. Well, falling objects is not one of those named perils they're going to be listing there. So if you get a fallen object that damages your house, if you have a basic form policy, that's going to be the time that you find out that you don't have coverage for that, which is kind of a scary proposition. So that's something to think about, too.
What about a falling limb during a windstorm?
Winds, the tree to be covered. No, I'm kidding. It wouldn't be because the tree doesn't have insurance. But no, if wind caused the falling object, it's still a falling object.
Okay.
From my background, that's the interpretation I have. Maybe some companies would interpret it differently. Say, well, it was wind that caused that limb to come down. But typically, a falling object is a falling object. The only peril I know of that always is the predominant peril is fire. If fire happens, it's fire.
Right.
But the other things are kind of not wishy-washy, but a little more clearly defined that it has to be that specific.
Well, you mentioned a tree blocking access to your home. Steve Nichols was in the other day. He had no power up where they live, so he's down here working on his laptop.
Yep.
And he says, well, I got to go home now. And then he shows me his phone. Had a tree down right across his driveway.
Okay.
So he couldn't get in.
So he could have probably, depending on the company he's with, and of course I speak in general terms, but based on my knowledge, you probably could have called your company and had some level of coverage to help cut that tree up. I had a tree down at my house too. It didn't go across anything. It was just down in my yard. So on Saturday morning, my son and I went out and, he's the stick picker upper at 6 years old who stays clear away from daddy with a chainsaw. Mommy wishes daddy didn't have a chainsaw, but we got it cleaned up and all taken care of, which was nice. But yeah, these are things that are going to happen. This weather is wacky. It's always been wacky. And there's going to be times that things happen that you're just beyond your control. So try to think about, at the time that you hear these stories, even if they're not local stories, you're hearing a story of something that happened that's caused loss. Think about how that could be affecting you. And if your insurance that you have in place is something that would address that.
Okay. All right. So it's good policies. Tell folks how to get in touch with you. Questions.
Sure. Give us a call. 748-5224. Visit us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Online, thebarrettagency.com. Google, Facebook, and YouTube. All Barrett Insurance Agency. One of those three companies is going to give me residuals for mentioning them every week. Google, Facebook, and YouTube. So
you're showing them with the likes. Okay. All right. We're going back to music. Bruno Mars and music from Andy.